talk to this group this morning, and the one group we didn't acknowledge was the traditional owners of the land we're meeting on, so I'd like to do that. I'll spend a bit of time just introducing myself because it's a change of commerce, and probably the idea you've got of Greens is they're anti-business and business people aren't involved with the Greens. I just wanted to dispel that. I was once described by Business Review Weekly as a visionary entrepreneur who created one of Australia's finest small businesses, and we became the Chelsea Australian Small Business of the Year for the nation, won the Australian Quality Award, and we're in the BRW fastest growing companies for 7 running years at 50% compound. That company became a public company listed on the ASX, and I went on to do that with other companies as well. So my background, going right back, I was born in Brisbane, disadvantaged background, my father, and the two ways out of that sort of background was a combination of education and enterprise. So I've been involved in work since I was about 11 years old. I know what it's like on the ground. Education, a country like Australia is wonderful in terms of the educational opportunities it's given people like me, so that's something that I don't forget and I highly value. And I did 4 university degrees, part-time, all of it part-time, and I was working in business and so forth while I was doing that. I've been a university academic at times. I've spent time as a professor in universities. I'm still an adjunct professor at the University Business School, and last year I was made an adjunct professor at Southern Cross University here in the Gold Coast. So I'm quite active in this campus down near the airport, which is, in this electorate, is a really exciting opportunity. One of the pillars of the economy which is really important, which really hasn't been mentioned fully, is the knowledge economy. You know, if we rely on our traditional businesses, building, tourism, construction, services, they're all very important. But if you look at a really solid economy, it needs a knowledge underpinning to it. And you've probably noticed in the last 10 or 15 years how much the Gold Coast has changed in that way with the growth of the universities on the Gold Coast. And Southern Cross down this end is the latest example of that. The other thing down this end of the coast you may not be aware of, but our candidate for Burleigh, Jan Paramo, members of, is Silicon Beach. Heard of Silicon Valley? Silicon Beach is the technology, entrepreneurial, venture capital hub of the Gold Coast. And we happen to all meet down at the Currumbin Surf Club once a year, so they all come down here. So there's an interaction between these, and the reason knowledge economy is so important is that there's about 15 jobs created. For every job you create in a university or a high-tech industry, the multiplier is about 15. I was one of the people who put together the smart state strategy for Peter Beattie, that came in from business and did that, and his passion for biotechnology and technology, he got from me. He was my local member when I was running my company, so I sort of schooled him a bit. So that's sort of a bit of the business credentials. What I've been really doing for the last 10 years or something is a professional company director and a business angel. So I've been helping, particularly from my background in technology, helping people from technology backgrounds with a combination of advice and investment money get started with their businesses. And a lot of the businesses I start small, grow, become global. So all of the ones that I've been involved in have become global companies dealing in 40 to 50 countries. And I think that's the model. We don't want to be so inward-looking that we're worrying what the rest of the world is doing to us. We've got to use the Gold Coast as a catalyst for getting our business and ideas out there. If you get that knowledge bit right, it stabilises your economy, and you're not so much at the risk of global financial things, or if it's a downturn in the business industry, building industry, you're more stable, so it helps all of us. Don't sort of look at the knowledge economy as something out there that's out there. And I think we're starting to move that way. In terms of Greens policies, we're not new. We've been around now for a long time. And the reason I got attracted to the Greens, when I really looked at the history and read a lot of the stuff over time, I realised they were ahead of the game. Stuff that the Greens were saying 20 years ago, they haven't changed in electoral cycles. They've been very consistent. Not a populist party, so they weren't looking for a short-term populist sort of fix. They were consistent, stuck to the guns, and that sort of is attractive to me because the businesses I've been involved in have been long-term. Investment, working it, growing it, developing, so they're long-term things. So I think politics should be the same. It shouldn't be short-term things that are happening tomorrow. They're important. And a good example is Laurel Quarry. That's something, it would be a default for the Greens to be against something like that happening in a place like that. But on a statewide basis, there's things like that happening all over the state with coal seam gas and all sorts of extractive industries. And this is the dilemma for somewhere like the Gold Coast, which is a beautiful, pristine environment with good quality businesses, to try to be building a mining industry in our backyard when we rely on tourism, it just doesn't fit. These things don't add up. One other quick thing I'll say in closing, this is a little practical thing that gets under the radar. Sunday is Clean Up Australia Day. I'll be working up at Currumbin Valley. What you'll find out is when you go out and get your hands dirty doing that, 70% of the stuff you pick up is drink containers. One of the national initiatives of the Greens is to introduce container deposit legislation. 10 cents can change the Gold Coast and 10 cents can change Queensland. So when you're doing that, just remember that we could easily reduce 70% of that litter by introducing a simple deposit which creates another economy. And Jan comes from South Australia. She knows how well it works in South Australia. It's not a green thing that's impractical, it works. And the other thing that's really important, it creates, there's 12 billion drink containers this year in Australia. So that's $1 billion industry you create. And a lot of that money goes back to community groups. In South Australia, the community groups get a lot of their money from doing things like that. So that's the sort of practical thing the Greens champion. Thank you.